Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Frances Hall? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Frances Hall was born sometime around 1963 and lived in San Antonio, Texas. When she was 16, she met a man named Bill Hall. They married when they were both 18 years old and had a daughter named Nikki a year later. 4 years after that, they had a son named Justin. Bill worked a few low-paying jobs prior to starting a trucking company in 1989. His company transported gravel and other materials for road projects. Eventually, the company grew from 1 truck to 128 trucks and was worth $15 million. Bill was a high sensation seeker. He used his tremendous wealth to purchase motorcycles and sports cars. Taking unnecessary risks was a common behavior for him. For example, he did not wear a helmet when he rode a motorcycle. Bill also had numerous affairs throughout his marriage. Frances knew about what he was doing, but always forgave him. In 2010, Bill attended a spinach festival and met a 28-year-old woman named Bonnie Contreras. She had worked as a clothing challenge dancer earlier in her life. Bill believed that Bonnie was physically attractive, and Bonnie found Bill's financial situation to be irresistible. The couple became lovers, despite the fact Bonnie was aware that Bill was married. He told her that he was separated from his wife, Frances, and they were going to get a divorce, but this was not true. Over the next 3 years, Bill spent a tremendous amount of money on Bonnie. He bought her a BMW, a Mercedes, a 5-carat diamond ring, and several vacations. In addition, he paid for her rent and for breast implants. By 2013, Bill was becoming tired of his affair with Bonnie. He was thinking about moving on. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On September 13, 2013, Bonnie called Frances and told her that she was having an affair with Bill. Frances confronted Bill, and he admitted that he was having an affair which had been going on for 3 years. In early October 2013, Bill and Frances stayed at a hotel as they tried to work out their marriage. Bonnie showed up at the hotel and demanded to see Bill. Security had to escort her out of the building. After this, Bonnie and Frances exchanged several unpleasant text messages. Here are a few examples of messages that Bonnie sent to Frances. Bonnie sent an image of her posterior with the caption, quote, "This is what he really likes, you fat old woman," unquote. Bonnie wrote, quote, "Let me know if you want some good, juicy pics of me and your hubby," unquote, and, quote, "You stupid old person, keep fixing yourself up. Maybe he will find you more attractive," unquote. Bonnie also sent a diagram of female reproductive anatomy with the caption, quote, "That's how you look like from your insides," unquote. Apparently, she was referring to the fact that Frances had a hysterectomy. Bonnie told the media that she sent the pictures in self-defense. For example, she sent images of her posterior because Frances had made unkind statements comparing it to a broken saddlebag and a broken toilet seat. I'm not sure that qualifies as self-defense. Has anyone ever been in a dangerous situation and thought to themselves, "I wish I had a firearm, a can of pepper spray, or several pictures of a rear end"? Nearly as frightening as the posterior photographs, Bonnie sent images of the Hall family house and vehicles, as if she had been stalking the family. On October 9, about a week into the exchange of these stressful messages, Frances and Bill found themselves in an argument. Frances kicked Bill and knocked over his motorcycle. He left the house and spent the night with Bonnie. On the next day, October 10, 2013, Frances drove to her niece's volleyball game in her Cadillac Escalade. As Frances was returning home on a 2-lane road called Loop 1604, she noticed Bill riding his motorcycle the other way. Behind Bill, Frances saw the Range Rover that she and Bill had just purchased. In the driver's seat was Bonnie Contreras. Frances had never seen Bonnie in person before, although she had seen more of Bonnie than she cared to in photographs. Frances became extremely angry. She turned the Cadillac Escalade around and started pursuing Bonnie. At one point during this pursuit, Bill was struck by the Escalade and died as a result. The collision was so dramatic, his boots were knocked off. Here's what happened according to Frances. She caught up with Bonnie with the intent of telling her to leave her family alone. Frances pulled up alongside the Range Rover and signaled for Bonnie to pull over, but Bonnie did not. Instead, she repeatedly hit the brakes. During this high-speed chase, Bill allowed both vehicles to pass him. Frances was not aware that she struck Bill with the Escalade. She only learned about this later. Frances claimed that she never rammed the Escalade into the Range Rover. Bonnie had a much different recollection of the events. She claimed that Frances rammed into the Range Rover 15 times. Bonnie was afraid of Frances and did not slam on the brakes. At one point, she passed Bill, so now he was between the two vehicles. In her rearview mirror, Bonnie witnessed Frances hit Bill in the rear of his motorcycle with the front of the Escalade. This, of course, is not true. Bill actually collided with the passenger side of the Escalade. Both Frances and Bonnie ended up at the scene of the collision that ended Bill's life. Frances was arrested and charged with felony murder and aggravated assault. On August 30, 2016, the murder trial began. On September 8, Frances Hall was found guilty of both charges. For the sentencing phase, the judge allowed the jury to consider the sudden passion defense. The jury sentenced Frances to 2 years in prison for each charge. The sentences ran concurrently. Frances was released from prison in September of 2018. In June of 2022, Frances Hall was arrested for securing execution of a document over $200,000. This is a first-degree felony. The state claimed that between 2009 and 2016, Frances provided false payroll information to an insurance company to get lower premiums for the trucking company that she had built with her husband. She avoided paying $9 million in premiums. If she is convicted of this crime, she could face up to life in prison. Frances denies any wrongdoing. Now moving to my analysis. Frances Hall maintains that she did not murder her husband Bill. She has many supporters, some of whom believe that Bonnie was the one who really caused this entire tragedy. The state, of course, has a different opinion. They believe that Frances killed Bill in the commission of a felony, namely the aggravated assault of Bonnie. This brings me to the question, was Frances Hall guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that she was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Frances turned around to follow Bonnie after seeing her traveling in the other direction. Therefore, she caused the confrontation. Frances could have just kept driving, and no one would have died. In her pursuit of Bonnie, Frances drove extremely fast and, at times, swerved into the oncoming lane of traffic or caused Bonnie to swerve into the other lane. An expert for the state believed that Frances rammed her Escalade into the Range Rover at least 2 times. This qualifies as aggravated assault. Bill died during the commission of this felony, therefore Frances committed felony murder. Moving to the exculpatory factors, a defense expert said that the Escalade and the Range Rover never made contact. Without this contact, it is more difficult to prove aggravated assault. Bill's motorcycle hit the passenger side of the Escalade. It's not like Frances ran into the back of his motorcycle, as Bonnie falsely claimed. Why was Bill alongside Frances in the first place? This would not be a safe position. As soon as this incident started, he should have pulled over and called 911. Maybe he was trying to stay in the middle of the action because he was sensation-seeking. Bill may have contributed to his own death through reckless driving. Bonnie may have also contributed to the negative outcome. She had been stalking the Hall family. She visited a hotel where Frances and Bill were staying, and, allegedly, sat 3 rows behind the couple at a movie theater on another occasion. Bonnie had been sending text messages which were offensive. She appeared to be trying to provoke a confrontation. Bonnie's mere presence in a vehicle owned by Frances could be considered a provocation. If Bonnie believed that she was in danger from Frances during the vehicle chase, why did she fail to call 911? Bonnie claimed that she was worried that Frances had a weapon, yet she drove to the scene of the collision. How frightened could she have been? Bonnie's account of the incident does not make any sense. Even the state conceded that her recollection of events was not accurate. They didn't call her a liar, but essentially, that's exactly what they called her. When considering the evidence, do I think Frances Hall was guilty of murder or aggravated assault? I do not believe that she was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of those two charges. However, I do believe that she committed a crime that caused Bill's death. A charge like manslaughter would have made more sense, in my opinion. Ultimately, the jury convicted her of murder and aggravated assault, but gave Frances a sentence that would have been on the low end even if she had been convicted of manslaughter instead. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Bill Hall was the type of man who wanted everything. A nice house, expensive cars, motorcycles, excitement, adventure, luxurious vacations, and frequent romantic encounters with many different women. His status as a millionaire allowed him to get most of what he wanted in life. Bill was grandiose, arrogant, self-centered, manipulative, charismatic, believed himself to be special, and had a sense of entitlement. He would have been with various women whether his wife Frances stayed with him or not. The only choice Frances had was to leave or stay. She chose to stay with him through his multiple affairs. When Bill found Bonnie, she falsely believed that she was special to him. To Bill, Bonnie was just another mistress in a long series. Bill eventually became bored with her and was ready to move on to his next adventure. Bonnie was unwilling to let go. She exposed the affair to Frances and engaged in stalking behavior, hoping to destroy Bill's marriage. When she tried to generate a list of all the attributes which made her valuable to Bill, the only thing she could think of was her posterior. This is why she sent images of that particular anatomical feature to Frances. These images were simultaneously repulsive and pathetic. They indicated just how extremely shallow Bonnie was and represented the depths of her desperation. Frances sent a clear message that she wanted Bonnie out of the picture, but Bill was sending mixed messages. Apparently, Bonnie made a persuasive argument with her backside images. Bill was worried that the bottom was going to drop out of his life. He didn't want to find himself at the tail end of the situation and unable to bring up the rear. Bill felt entitled to everything. A part of him wanted to be with both women. Frances and Bonnie did not know how to set boundaries with Bill or did not want to. When Frances started following Bonnie on October 10, 2013, neither woman had the maturity or the insight to disengage. In their game of cat and mouse, Bill was struck and subsequently died. This roadway fiasco was an analogy for the way Bill lived his life. Here he was on a lightweight vehicle, driving at high speeds with two gigantic SUVs that he owned, driven by women who he aggravated. Bill contributed just about every ingredient to this recipe for disaster. On top of all his many mistakes, he did not even bother to wear a helmet. Now moving to my final thoughts. The challenge with Bill Hall wasn't that he wanted to have enjoyment in life. It's that he wanted to have enjoyment at the expense of other people's feelings. He pitted one woman against another and managed to sidestep trouble himself, but ultimately he was too confident in his belief that the women would never jeopardize his safety. Bill wanted to be with a lover who would knock his socks off, but he forgot that his wife was able to knock his boots off. He engaged in the endless pursuit of a posterior region. Bill may not have been rear-ended, but he was ended by a rear. Those are my thoughts on the case of Frances Hall. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.